I was always a little immature for my age. Even though I'd been out on my own in Texas for 4 years, some things were more important to me than others, and not always the right ones. Like not seeing a dentist in 5 years. My first 2 weeks in Lansing, I stayed in a motel. My dad lived 90 miles away, and it was sure easier being there than back in Texas. One of the union representatives helped me rent a house, and Dad had some old furniture he wanted to get rid of. Heavy stuff. So a high school friend and I moved it all into the rental. I'd had a pattern of taking on roommates in Texas to help pay the bills, and even though I'd been told not to let anyone else move into the house, I did it anyway. His name was Marty, and he was a switcher at the plant. I also made friends with another switcher named Steve, a towering man in his 40s. One of my employees had a mobile home she wanted to sell, so I bought it for $1,000. The lot rent was $150 a month. The lady who managed the mobile home park was upset that I'd bought the place without filling out a credit application first. She also told me the deck wasn't any good and would have to be replaced if I got approved. I did get approved, and I told the union representative that Marty would be taking over the house rental. He wasn't impressed that I'd let someone move in after he told me not to. I had a Honda 450 motorcycle that wouldn't start, so I offered it to Steve if he'd help me redo my deck. Both of us had stories to tell, so I shared my testimony up to that point, and he told me his, that he was a retired mafia hitman. He played it up well, good drama. I think he actually believed it. Anyway, he asked if he could move in because he was having problems with his wife. And that's when my problems started to get worse. If the anointing marks the beginning, then the next chapter is always a test. Mine came not in the pulpit or the classroom, but in my own living room. Sharing my testimony brings the fire not only down on me, but also the person I share it with. It began with Steve, a friend I had helped many times, a man who carried his own demons, both figurative and literal. He brought with him April, a young woman barely 20 years old. At first, it seemed like simple hospitality, opening my home, offering a roof while they sorted out their lives. I had done that before for many others, but this time was different. From the very first moment I met April, I was struck with a word of knowledge. This is the one you are to marry. I did not assume it. I knew the test was to wait for confirmation. Still, that seed of the word sat heavy in me. What followed was not peace, but chaos. Steve was 44, clinging desperately to April in a counterfeit love. Their presence brought not just tension, but an army of darkness. The atmosphere shifted. Where I had wrestled with a few demons before, suddenly I felt hundreds. My home was no longer just walls and furniture. It had become a battlefield.
Frank, my handler, my little buddy, was there to steady me. He warned me, "Bill, beware of love triangles. They are snares of the enemy. They will confuse your emotions, divide your heart, and steal your testimony. The Spirit does not work through triangles. He works through covenant. God's not the author of confusion." I did not want to hear it. My loneliness was deep, and my desire for April was real. When Steve was gone, April and I connected easily. Conversation turned tender. One night, only the fear of Steve walking in stopped us from crossing the line. I was caught between a word of knowledge and a war in my flesh. I told Frank everything. He listened, and through the Spirit, he corrected me again. This is not how the kingdom comes. The enemy sets traps. Don't let a love triangle rob you of what God has promised. Be patient. God is not the author of confusion. But still, I wrestled. Like Samson with Delilah, like David on the roof, I stood on the edge of ruin. And then came the breaking point. April told me off, rejecting me outright. I asked them both to leave. Steve, dangerous and volatile, returned to Texas with April in tow. The silence afterward was deafening. I felt used, deceived, abandoned. But in that very moment, Frank's words came back to me. Don't be yoked with sinners. Don't let the enemy steal your inheritance with a counterfeit. It was then I realized the trap had not been about romance at all. It was about my calling. If the enemy could tangle me in that web, the anointing would be neutralized, my testimony discredited, my eternal kingdom compromised. What Satan meant for destruction, God turned it into discernment. I came out wounded, but wiser. And I began to see Frank's role even more clearly. He was not just my counselor, but my Samuel, training me to recognize the traps of the enemy and walk clear of them. The eternal kingdoms cannot be handed to someone who is ruled by their flesh. The trap revealed my weakness, but it also trained me in war. And war is what every anointed one must face,